Welcome to Reccast, a video podcast series about all things AI in recruitment, brought to you by Reccast.
Hi, and welcome to this episode of Reccast, the podcast series where we explore the use of AI in recruitment, looking for the opportunities, ethical considerations, and pitfalls. I'm your host, Jussi, and with me I have my co-host and colleague Miikka. This is our 5th episode now, and today we don't have a guest. Miikka and I thought that this is a good time to do a bit of a recap episode, to have a chat about what we've learned from our guests this far, and perhaps something to think about what we want to learn going forward. We do have a few guests booked, and there will be future episodes again with interesting guests. More about that at the end of the show. But Miikka, what's your thoughts this far?
Yeah, it's been super interesting for the first 4 episodes with the guests. I think that we can quite clearly say that, as we all know, of course, as well, that the AI is still fairly new in this context, even though it's been available for years. But of course, the boom started like a year or 2 ago. But it seems to be that still there are like high hopes for the AI, but still quite a lot of uncertainty that where it will actually be used and how.
Not too many practical areas. We have had some examples, but mostly I agree with you. It's been mostly about people all of our guests this far have been thinking about it quite a lot. How do I use AI in recruitment? What kind of processes do we have in place? But then practical implications quite limited, mainly to different kind of utilizations around producing some form of text.
Yeah, and also quite individual approach to the topic. So there's not like a common guidelines that goes to all kinds of organization, but instead of that, it's mostly like individual users finding their ways of making their job easier with AI and more efficient.
And I guess that's more general as well. We were in an event last week where we had somebody talking to a group of founders and CEOs of small growth companies, and he was talking a lot and actually showing quite practical examples on how individual people, in this case CEOs and different team leaders and C-levels, can improve and enhance their own working processes. What kind of examples he's seen in the companies where he's a board member, where people are building, enhancing their workflows around sales, marketing, even writing RFPs or answering info security questionnaires like we do here at Rec, right? But then also around HR, I would say, and recruitment was mentioned in that talk as well. So everybody's kind of acknowledging that there are benefits to be had, but like we kind of like our hypothesis was in the beginning, the practical use cases are still somewhat limited.
Yeah, and I think that also thinking of producing or let's say offering a product to our customer, for example here at Reccast, I think that we've been discussing use of AI in our tool quite a lot, but I've been thinking that quite important would be to actually cut the whole process to quite small pieces, and the parts of the process that we actually offer to, or the system that we actually offer to our customers, and go to quite small pieces and what parts of those pieces AI can make easier or more automated. So not necessarily thinking anything big, but instead going to a small parts and try to find use cases for AI in those smaller pieces.
Yeah, agree. So in the first episode we had Samuli as our guest. Samuli is the co-founder of TalentBee and the CEO of TalentBee, so kind of a modern talent acquisition agency. And it was a good thing to kick off with Samuli with his background also in sales and marketing. So he's been personally using quite a lot of different kind of tools. And during the episode, he talked about what tools they use at TalentBee to speed up and make their recruitment work for their clients faster and more efficient. And I think they had a bunch of AI tools, but what's your takeaway of what Samuli kind of found most useful?
I think that it's quite big part of their offering is around employer branding as well. They are doing recruitment, but also employer branding. And if we think of an employer branding, what it is actually, it's quite a lot producing content for different customers. And making the employer brand better by publishing things. And it seems to be that it's quite fruitful area for using AI in those kind of like content creation and stuff. But also have to say about Samuli and the Talentbee as a company, they are also like super willing to find efficient ways of producing what they produce to their customers. So it seems to be that it's also kind of in their DNA to use tools like AI.
Yeah, and test a lot of new things. So they are still a small company, quite agile. They can actually test quite a lot of new things. But if I remember correctly, somebody also mentioned that not, for example, related to employee branding, he still said that they need to proofread everything. So it's not like they are producing automatically stuff for publication with the help of AI.
Yeah, but I'm sure that it will anyway take or make it way easier as you get like at least the raw material for the proofreading.
Of course, then for a consultancy, a buyer who knows what they're doing can also then start to have that conversation that now with AI you are much more efficient. So should that impact the hours you're using? So it's of course always when you're selling labor and human work, and that's your kind of main product. And then when you find a tool like this which makes your people X amount of percentages more efficient, then what the customer kind of rightfully so is asking is that how can I see this in my invoice?
Yeah.
Do you work more? Do you work more efficiently?
Yeah. And does the AI actually make the end product better?
Exactly.
That's
a good
probably a question as well.
Well then, in this second episode we had Tiina and Raul. So Tiina, the current interim CEO of Orangit, and with experience from HR in the Finnish railway company VR, Musician, and few others. And then with her, we had her former colleague Raul, who is today a talent acquisition lead at Carboculture and formerly of Musician. And I think this was a really good episode. We had a lot of interesting discussion, and especially Raul he used AI surprising a lot in his own recruitment process, where he's looking for quite senior, hand-picked, and very niche kind of doctorate level people many times for the Carboculture. So I would have imagined that's more of a hand-picking the candidates and manually approaching them, but at least he seemed to be using quite a few tools in his process.
Yeah, and I was a bit surprised on that because I think that a quite typical assumption is that the more niche the recruitment is, the more human work it means, basically.
Exactly.
So not that much of a mass process, but instead everything hand-picked and that. But there was surprisingly many ways of making things more efficient, and also he mentioned those it's also a great way to communicate internally with the help of AI, what kind of roles, what kind of things they are doing in the talent acquisition at the moment.
And he was testing also quite a lot of spending time on getting the job description right, and that was part of the internal discussion. That's actually interesting learning also, because we of course see also quite a lot of senior headhunters who are focusing on the high level, so board positions, C-levels, and if somebody like Raul can use a lot of AI tools to build their process better, I would argue that the same applies for these senior headhunters as well.
Yeah, it would be actually interesting to know how, or are they using those more traditional senior headhunters? Are they already using AI, or is it still something to come for their processes as well? Because traditionally they have been. It's been completely different part of recruitment compared to a normal advertisement-based recruitment. So it would be interesting to know.
Perhaps that's an idea for a future guest.
Yeah, I think
we should invite somebody to talk about. It doesn't need to be even that advanced, but somebody to talk about how their headhunting process goes.
Yeah,
and kind of because I think we could find pockets of improvements.
Yeah, but I think that also discussing with Tiina and Raul, it gave us the again quite natural finding that it's quite easy, or I don't know easy, but way easier to start using new things like AI if you are working in a tech organization where basically everybody are quite tech savvy.
The buy-in is there.
Yeah.
And tools like transcribing every meeting you do with candidates, with people in your process. That was something I think Raul had as a very, very kind of basic thing in his setup. Was quite useful and fairly easy to get started with.
Yeah, and then kind of a segue from tech-savvy, smaller, more agile organization, going to the third episode that we had with Laura Ansaharju, who has mostly been working with the big Finnish companies like Finnair, VR, and something else like that as well before that. So it's a way different playground compared to those like more agile tech companies.
And Laura talked a lot about rethinking the processes, and of course, because her task, at least at Finnair, and as well as the VR, has been around kind of change and digitalization, and kind of then how does the kind of recruitment and HR change? And of course, she was thinking a lot about that. Yes, tools are something, but you kind of need to rethink the processes and everything, and how do you kind of bring the human and keep the human in discussion as well.
Yeah, no, I think we can quite safely say that there's quite a lot of processes in those organizations. So there is ways, or let's say numerous processes to improve and make more efficient with the AI. So of course there as well, because I think that also kind of what we've learned from all the episodes so far is that all kinds of organizations are already getting quite a lot of efficiency from the AI.
Yeah. But I guess for the big ones, it's still kind of the furthest away. But then again, they have such large volumes that there's quite a lot of efficiency gains to be had only with kind of small improvements into the process itself. Fourth. In the fourth episode, we had Alona visiting us and talking about especially her thesis work. Of course, her experience as a recruiter as well, but especially focusing on her thesis, which is kind of a use of AI in recruitment was the topic, and especially focusing on the European Union. And she had a lot of interesting insights.
Yeah, and I think that we were quite a lot of discussing around the EU AI Act, or the official name might be something else, but I think we know what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. So, and it's a very new thing still. So it's like one of the most interesting things around the whole AI topic is that how the EU Act will actually affect things. And as it says in the Act, that no selection can be done by AI, but how it's like defined, which is the selection made by AI, as one example.
And quite a few questions actually around still about the whole AI Act, and that might be a topic for even another episode and another guest, because Alona highlighted that because of the criticalness, if I remember right, there was 5 steps of critical levels of kind of importance or criticalness of information, and HR recruitment information is kind of second most critical. Mm. So and in that brings along that the Act stipulates that you need to have human oversight of the process. And at least for me, it's quite unclear yet what does a human oversight for an AI tool mean, because it is quite a black box.
Yeah, it is. And we had a nice discussion about exactly that what it means to have a human oversight. Is it only like a random checks of the decisions, or does it have to be always there? Or we don't know.
Exactly.
And that's something that probably if we would do an episode of podcast every year regarding the EU Act, it will be a bit different every year, even though the original piece of text stays pretty much the same.
Yeah,
but what has happened with the GDPR?
Correct.
Then came the Schrems tools and the data shield things, and now the last summer changed things again, and it's already 6 years since the GDPR.
True. So it will get more and more accurate. What Alona also has done actually quite nicely, she's published a kind of a summary of her thesis in LinkedIn, and she's kind of highlighting that what things AI can be used already today to, for example, things like automated screening and shortlisting of candidates, predictive analytics for candidate matching, chatbots for initial candidate interaction, these kind of things. But, these are kind of areas, as long as you're aware of the considerations around what we just discussed, where you can start to explore with AI. But then again, what it isn't is that you can't give it the full autonomy in decision making. And she's hesitant. I would be also very hesitant about using AI for things like emotional intelligence, sentiment analysis. Even though many of them provide sentiment analysis, that's very cultural. That's really depending on the learning set you have, and trying to say whether somebody's happy, sad, aggressive, passive, engaged, neutral based on their facial expressions or what they say is.
Yeah, and that's like if thinking completely from the personal point of view. I get the feedback at home that, why are you looking so serious? Why are you angry? And I'm feeling perfectly fine, but I might look like being serious or something like that. So just a small example, but it makes it so hard to analyze, for example, from the video, that what people is actually thinking.
Yeah.
They might be concentrating so hard on what they are saying that it actually makes them look more serious and so on.
And again, it goes down to the learning set you've had, that how do you do that? But I would be hesitant about that. And this is quite an interesting topic. Some of them mention, for our guests mentioned that AI could be used, and I've heard other solutions as well, that AI can be used for bias reduction, which is kind of interesting. I understand that it might be helpful to have a tool where you can ask that, do I have biases in my job description or job ad?
Yeah.
But
and I think that the specific case has been that actually there has been AI in use, and then the other AI checking if the AI has bias. And this is like my favorite learning so far, or actually I've been just mostly thinking that can it work like that?
Yeah.
Or is it just an infinite loop? And then you ask for the third AI tool to check the second one, which is checking the first one.
Yeah.
Is there bias? And every AI tool will find something else from the material. So I think that goes also partially to the high hopes section.
Yeah.
But is it possible? I think remains to be seen, but it sounds a bit risky for me.
One more highlight from this document that Alona has done, and what we discussed, I don't think we discussed this with her actually, but this is in her thesis, and in here is that one area where I feel that there's huge opportunities to be had already today, and that doesn't have too much, you don't have the ethical consideration, there is workflow automation. So helping the organizations to run their candidates through the process of recruitment, the initial job ads and kind of sourcing the candidates if that's more of a targeted thing, getting them into the process, getting them to participate in different stages you have, keeping them engaged and up to date all the time. I would say this is something that the ATSs probably need to do, but there I think are huge opportunities if that goes smartly with AI, and it's more than, there are already today rule-based automation systems, of course, if this then that. But adding more smarts to it, adding some automated generated text capabilities and things like that, I think there could be a kind of real benefits for recruitment organizations, especially the big ones.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, but so far, based on the four first episode, I think that we have learned quite a lot, had a good discussions, and I'm really looking forward to the upcoming ones. We will have someone representing more like a product side, like developing a product of AI. We will have more like DEI-centric topic, something about the trends, like more on the market side and so on. But more of that, of course, when we release the episodes. But those kind of things we will have. And
perhaps a few more voices from abroad. So even though we've had international guests, all of them have been kind of focused here, working here in Finland. So we'll have guests from Sweden, probably Denmark, hopefully elsewhere as well.
Yeah.
Widen our perspective a bit.
Yeah. Because so far we haven't. We've been asking from the guests, do they find cultural differences, like when using this kind of tools, if the candidates are all from the different parts of the world, and even the hiring teams might be like spread wide all over the world. But so far, I think we haven't heard of that kind of like that there would be a cultural difference that much.
Even though, especially Raul and Alona to some extent as well. Both are doing a lot of international
Yeah,
recruitments.
yeah. So I think we will keep searching for that
Exactly.
kind of differences with the more guests from other countries and other areas as well. But I think this was like a wrap up for the first four episode, and also wanted to tell a bit what is coming next. Thank you for listening. Thank you for spending this time with us. Hope you liked it, and hope you subscribe to Reccast LinkedIn page. You will hear news about our episodes and other interesting stuff as well, or subscribe to Reccast in the podcast series of choice, like Spotify, Apple, Google, and those services you use. Thank you, Jussi.
Thank you, Miikka.
And see you again. Bye.
Bye bye.